Cher Dr. Lyons, chers collègues éleveurs laitiers du monde entier, dear Mr. Lyons, and dear all my dairy colleagues from all around the world, it's a big pleasure for me to join the Alltech Global 500 again. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to my region, to Normandy, one of the most beautiful regions in the world. I don't have a French accent when I speak English. It is a Scandinavian accent. Originally, I come from Norway, as you know, Normans' ancestors. And I landed on a nice beach near Bayeux 25 years ago. I met a nice French farmer's son. We married and lived happily ever since, more or less. And today, I would like to share some thoughts with you about challenges for future generations and especially about farming labor. Mrs. Lyons' presentation was very interesting because she was talking about hiring people. I will talk more about family farms and work efficiency. How can we be more efficient? If you see at young people in a new job, what do they look for? They look for money, to have a big car, to have holidays, and to work with nice people. I hope you agree more or less with this. What about young farmers? Are they looking for the same? No, I don't think so. Young farmers, they try to make the living out of the farm. They don't want a big car, but they rather want to have a tractor or a milking robot. And if they have a weekend from time to time, it's nice. And it's important to work with nice cows. So, my question to you is it feasible and reasonable to be more ambitious as a young farmer? Should we also dream about making profit, having more free time, and still doing a good job and being a happy farmer? Yes, I think that we should dream more as farmers, and I think we should have more ambitions. And we have a big potential to fill. If we want our children to take over our farms, we must start now to improve our labor management. We must be more profitable and not only focus on milk prices, especially in France, and we must help young people to find out how they can manage startup costs and investments. So first, some words about labor management. Much more important on farms than maybe we think of in general. We had a snapshot for the EDF, European Dairy Farmers, this year. Just let us say one word about what is EDF about. It is a club for European dairy farmers. We share knowledge and experience from farmer to farmer. And we do a benchmarking of our figures. And we try to find inspiration and good ideas from front-running farmers from other countries. And this is also what I enjoy when I come to the Alltech events, meet farmers from other countries and find inspiration in your experience. So, what about this snapshot? As you can see, the result isn't very positive. Though that we consider ourselves as more motivated farmers than average, only 1/3 of our farmers consider themselves as happy or very happy with their work-life balance. 6% were not happy at all. The reasons are obviously that farmers don't take a lot of holidays and days off per week. In the camembert at the left, the pie chart at the left, we call it camembert in French, we can see that when the farm manager is a family member, he only takes 12% have no holidays, Another 30% have up to 1 week holidays, and only 38% have more than 2 weeks of holidays per year. Of course, if you go to the other side, on the right-hand side, you see when the farm manager is a hired employee, the situation is better. So we respect legal, social regulations about hired labor. Their average is 25 days of holidays. And we also found that about half of the farmers, they have no day offs per week. So this is not very good news, but is it impossible to be efficient in dairy farming? And we think that no, it isn't impossible. We must find solutions, and they exist. In France, when a crop farmer is working 1 hour, dairy farmer must work 8 hours to have the same income. So it's tough to be competitive. I live near to Caen, near to the crop area, and a lot of dairy farmers, they stop milking because it is too much labor. It is much easier to make money out of crop farming rather than dairy business. So what about next generation? Can we change it? Because maybe the next generation will not accept to work in the same way. Usually people will say that time is money. But in our farms, we have a lot of unpaid family labor. 89% of our EDF farms, they have unpaid family labor. So, okay, if you're happy with this, why not? But if you want to be profitable in the long run, we should be able to pay all the labor necessary for the dairy business. And especially if we grow and if we need hired labor, because hired labor, we must pay for it. So if we take all the working hours we spend on our dairy business, we put an average salary on the family labor, we realize that total cost for working hours represents 19% of total cost for a dairy farm. So it isn't peanuts. And it is very important to control our working labor. And another information, in EDF, average return on labor last year was only 8.5 euros per hour work. So, of course, in the future, we must find some solutions about this because farms are growing, we will have less family labor and more hired labor. In EDF, it is very difficult sometimes for the farmers to fill in their working hours and also to fill in the volume of feedstuff. But how can you manage what you don't measure? Feedstuff represents 25% of total cost, and as I told you, work costs represents 19%. So maybe we should try to fill it in and see how many hours do we really spend in our dairy business. We have a potential for improvement because we can see that working hours per cow per year goes from 107 hours per cow for the least efficient farms and up to 26 hours for the most efficient farms. So the efficiency is 4 times higher at the most efficient farms. What about you? Do you know how many hours you spend on your dairy farming? Differences are huge between countries. In the green circle at the right, you have the 25% most efficient farms. Here you can find countries like Ireland, UK, the Netherlands, and Denmark. They work less than 36 hours per cow. On the other side, in the red circle, you have the least efficient farms. Here you can see countries from Eastern Europe and also some from South Europe. They work more than 65 hours per cow. So what are the reasons? We think it's about differences in working methods, in culture, history, traditions. And yeah. So when we started our new process costing method, we were very curious to discover if automatic milking systems is the only way to be efficient. And the answer was, it is not the only way, but they are more efficient than other farms. As you see on this graph, AMS, meaning automatic milking systems, they have the same efficiency as large herds with more than 250 cows. So they have an efficiency about 400 hours used per 100 tons of milk. And we also see that small herds in EDF, less than 92 hours, they are less efficient. But there are still a huge potential for the small farmers to improve, because we have some very efficient farmers in the small group with the same efficiency as robot milking farmers and large herds. So you can be efficient if you're a small farmer, but it's more difficult. Some words about profitability. If we want young people to start a dairy business, it must be profitable. But what does it really mean to be profitable? In EDF, we realize it's quite a big difference between short-term profitability to cover cash cost and long-term profitability, what we should have to cover our total cost. Let's take our return, milk return per ton milk last year. When we add the milk price, the milk return, 365 euros per ton milk, and then we take the return from animal and other return, we have a total return of 440 euros per ton milk. Cash cost, all the invoices we paid, represented 330 euros per ton milk. So it was a short-term profitability of 110 euros per ton milk. This sounds great, but don't forget that you also need to pay your family labor. That is not cash cost. You should pay rent to yourself for own land, and you should also give yourself interest for tied up capital in your dairy enterprise. So if we take the same figures, of course, now we're looking on the long term. Return is the same, 440 euros per ton milk, but total cost, if we include an average labor on all working hours, we include interest on tied up capital in the enterprise and rent on owned land, we come up to a cost of 493 euros per ton milk. And the profitability makes a loss of minus 53 euros per ton milk. So of course, my bank account, it is not a problem. I have the money to cover my cash cost. But if tomorrow I will have more hired labor, I must pay all the working hours. If I'm growing, I will have more rented land and I will have to pay interest on this land. And if I need to invest a lot of money, maybe I also will have investors coming into my farm and I need to give them interest on their shares in my business. We all know it's expensive in most countries to establish as a farmer, and we have difficulties to buy land because prices are high, except in France and some other countries, eastern countries, whose prices are still reasonable, but prices on land in Europe are growing fast. Heavy investments are also necessary, and especially in Denmark, farmers, they often ask themselves if they really need to own the assets, to own the capital of their farms. This is a graph showing debts and interests in some countries. In Denmark, the average EDF farmer has almost 20,000 euro debt per cow. It can go up to 40,000 euros debt per cow. If you go to the French farmer, we have an average of only 2,500 euros debt per cow. So it's big, really big differences in Europe. And it's, of course, the same with the interest cost. You can see that Denmark have an average interest cost of 6 cents per kg milk, and in France we only have a cost of 1.5 cents interest per kg milk. Who are the most competitive? The one who have invested a lot and have higher interest cost? Or is it the French farmer with low debts and a big potential to invest and who today have low interest rates? I think that Denmark is several steps ahead of France in terms of size and farm structure, but they are in a very difficult financial situation. France is far behind in terms of size of herds of farms and in our structure and investments. But we also have a very good potential to grow and to invest. So it is all a question and a matter of having different strategies between countries and also between farmers. And we see in EDF that there isn't only one successful strategy. You must find the strategy that suits yourself as being responsible of your farm business. You can go for low cost, having a small farm, and you can go for a high technology and have 2,000 cows. It can be profitable, you can be happy, and you can do a very good job. It's a matter of different strategies. If farms are growing, and as you see in Denmark, it is difficult to understand, especially for us here in France, how can they afford to invest 40,000 euros per cow? But in fact, they accept not to pay back the principal of their loans. They only pay back the interest and then said, okay, if my son is taking over the farm in 10 or 20 years, then he can pay back. It is not my problem. And if my son won't continue to farm, well, then we can sell it. And prices of land and farms are good, so I will not lose any money. So Danish farmers, they consider that they don't need to pay back the principal. They don't need to own the assets of the farm. Farming is industrie lourde, heavy industry. And it's difficult to be competitive and profitable. I think that one solution is to find innovative and smart partnerships with investors, but only if farmers can keep the control of the farms. So the question, bigger farms grow or die? As you heard yesterday, big farms is a sensible topic in France. Reality is that the pyramid of ages is inverted. A lot of farmers are getting older and a few young farmers come into business. And if you want to maintain our national production level, we must increase production per farm. So do we need 500 cows to be profitable? Maybe not, but I'm very afraid that our margins are getting lower and that we need a higher volume to maintain the same income. But a higher volume means more milk, more cows, and also more work. So do we afford to pay for this extra labor? I think especially for the smallest farms, so in EDF we talk about farms below 92 cows per farm, economy of scale and labor efficiency are two very important arguments in favor for bigger farms. Some words very quickly about my farm. I have 110 hectares. We have 120 Holstein cows. We do all the work in the fields by contractors. And it's a rather low-cost system with old buildings and very little machinery. We have one full-time employee, and my husband and me, we work part-time on the farm because we also have another family business. We have 6 children to look after and take care of, and that also needs a lot of time. So, will one of our children take over in the future? Of course, I hope so. But I think it's important that we mustn't plan our children's lives, and then they must be free to choose their own lives. And Mrs. Lyons also talked about this. Some time ago, one of my children, 6 years old, he looked worried, and I asked him, "What's wrong?" He looked at me and said, "Are you unemployed, Mom and Dad?" And I said, "Why? Why, is it because I didn't buy you the new bike you wanted? You think we don't have enough money?" And he said, "No, it's because you never work." And I said, "Well, we work on the farm every day." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, farming is not working, it's about life." So, of course, I was very happy when he told me this, because this is what I choose when I established as a farmer. It was not only about a business, it was also about a way of life. But maybe our children will choose other options in the future. So, 120 cows, is that enough for tomorrow? As a good Normand, I would say, peut-être banque oui, peut-être banque non. This means Normans, they are very indecisive. Maybe somehow yes, maybe somehow no. French regulation and policy is not in favor of big farms. We have today a strongly regulated quota system, and we have some possibilities for growth after 2015, but we have very limiting contracts with our processors. And I really think that the French dairy sector has very good potential to go to the world market and to produce more milk. And I don't know if you know that la gastronomie française, the French cooking, is on UNESCO's World Heritage List. And this should help us to sell our dairy products on the world market. We have a very good climate, as you see, for the 2-3 days here in Deauville, rain, sun, and warm weather, perfect for forage production for cows. We have land available. We have farmers willing to produce, good capacity to invest, but we'll wait and see. This is the French paradox, I would say. As Dr. Lyons told us yesterday, we need to dream and we need to make a plan to make our dream come true. And when we are dreaming, we should think and remember that time is money. We should dream, when we dream about what we will do in the next year, we should think, do I want to manage cows or do I want to manage people? There are several ways to be profitable, and we must make the best out of our resources and change our weak points into strong points. A small wink to our last EDF Congress 2014 in Switzerland, where this nice cow inspired me. I think that we need innovation, we need motivation and long-term perspectives. And this is really what I find when I come also to the All-Tech events. I really find this motivation and long-term perspectives for farming in the world. We needed to get over obstacles and bring the world forward. If we allow our next generation to dream, and if we trust their ability to make their dreams come through, they will bring us to new heights. Thank you so much.